Hi there, and thanks for stopping by. I'm Devin Horner, and today you're joining me here on the tarmac at Wyoming Valley Airport in 40 Fort, Pennsylvania. This is KBWB, and we're just in front of the FBO where Valley Aviation is a pilot training school, and it's actually the school that I went to when I got my private pilot's license. And in fact, we are sitting in the very aircraft that I took my first solo in, and actually logged several hours in. November 5207 Quebec. My favorite paint scheme of the fleet at Valley Aviation, and so this is the one I always picked to do a lot of my flights in. So we'll talk a little more about that in a second, but today I want to do something a little bit different and special, and it's an idea that I stole slash borrowed slash was inspired by from a YouTuber that I like to watch a lot, and that is we're just going to do a fly and chat. I have some updates, some news. I just wanted to update the upcoming or future status of the channel and just let you know how I'm doing. And instead of just sitting here and talking about it, we're just going to do some leisurely flights around the Wyoming Valley here, which is just south of Scranton, Pennsylvania. We're about midway between Scranton to the north and Wilkes-Barre to the south. And so we're just going to take the old Cessna up today, shoot a few landings, some touch and goes, and maybe look around the old neighborhood and then come back to land, and we'll talk about a few things. But before we get into anything too serious, let's go ahead and get started up and get underway. All right, let's see here. Let's get a going. Beacon on. Clear prop. So 07 Quebec here. This is a 1973 Cessna 172M in real life. Here in the sim, we're flying the 172S, which I don't know all of the main differences, but the biggest noticeable difference is that the real plane is a carbureted engine. Here we have our fuel injection. So slight difference, but not anything, too crazy. So I had flown this aircraft before my solo, but the solo flight happened on December 20th, 2016. It was about midday, so it was very snowy out, which is actually kind of a rare thing up in the Northeast. We always think about Christmas time being snowy, but it's actually quite rare. But 2016, we had a lot of snow on the ground, so it was a very white flight. And I did 6 touch and goes and landings for about an hour-long flight. So to our right here would actually be a very large hangar, very Art Deco looking. The airport was originally built in 1929, so it's been around for a long time, which unfortunately they are not included. No one has made, I've not been able to find a Wyoming Valley mod that redoes the airport, so we're just in the stock Wyoming Valley here, but perhaps just not quite popular enough to make a mod for. Although I should go back to talking about the plane here. So I've discovered the 07 Quebec livery on flightsim.to, and this was made by username KABobby98. He put it up, and he made it because he apparently is also now going to the school, getting his license right now, and so he opted to make a version of this because this is his favorite plane too. So I just happened to be, just going through the the flight sim TO randomly looking for interesting stuff, and I saw this aircraft that I instantly recognized. So I absolutely had to get it. And so decided to showcase it, show it off here today, because it brings back a lot of old memories. The reason that I came to this particular flight school was because at the time they had an agreement with Marywood University up in Scranton, who has a business program that has an aviation component to it. So when I moved here in 2016, I actually went to Marywood for a semester and a half. That was my first try at college. And that was the program I did. So that first year, like I said, semester, or it was a year and a half, I guess. It was actually 3 semesters. During that time, I went ahead and I got my private pilot's license through the school, through Marywood, that is, using my Montgomery GI Bill money. So my veterans money actually paid for it, so I didn't have to pay at all for the license, and that's how I got it. And after the 3rd semester, after I got the basic private pilots, I was not interested in continuing school at all. I just disliked it so much, and the business program was so uninteresting. Like, as much as the aviation part was cool, that was actually only a very small part. And all of the regular business stuff was so boring. I had quit my job in Connecticut to come live here and go to school full time, and so the requirements of like 400 hours of community service required by the business degree for the school also did not interest me. Because part of that 400 hours was getting basically like an unpaid internship over a summer, and I was like, I quit my job to come here. Like, this is supposed to be kind of a vacation. I don't want to go back to work and also not get paid for it. So it was just a lot of stuff that was not working out, and so I quit. And I was very happy to do so. And I went on and I did a lot of part-time work with my friend with his audio-visual business up there. We did the 2019 documentary for Keystone College, which is just up to the north here, on the other side of this ridge of mountains, a few miles up north. They had their 150th anniversary, and so my buddy Carl was hired to do that, to make a documentary for them, and then he hired me on as a partner, so co-producer. He ended up giving me credit for writing it, and I also narrated and did a lot of the research. So that was like my first foray into doing historical research. So when it was time to think about maybe completing studies and actually getting a real degree, finally, that's kind of why history came around. That and this channel, I have a lot of experience with dealing with these historical subjects and whatnot. So getting a history degree seemed like a good idea to sort of legitimize what I was doing already, because now I've completed that degree just 2 weeks ago, or maybe 3 weeks ago now. I completed my final class for the history degree, and I now have a bachelor's in history, so I am accredited. How cool is that? Let's see, let's get this. We got a plane in the pattern here, so we're just gonna wait. That Cub was departing. Actually, you know what? Why don't I put this on the... Oh, actually, we can see him here. So yeah, Cub is departing out of the pattern, but we've got someone just coming on to out of base into final here ahead of us. So we'll wait for them to clear, because we have to back taxi down onto the end of what is this? 27? 25, I think. I think it's runway 25. So we're located here in 40 Fort, which is a bizarre name, but it's actually interesting historically. It was named for the original 40 settlers who arrived here from Connecticut. This whole area, the Wyoming Valley, actually has a very deep connection back to Connecticut, which is where I'm from originally, so that's very interesting to me. And so 40 Fort was named for the original 40 settlers who arrived here and built a fort along the banks of the Susquehanna River in 1770. And he's touch and go. He's off. All right. Where's my power? There we go. So yeah, this whole area actually has it's a very interesting history related to New England and the Revolution. This area in particular, the Wyoming Valley, it was actually gifted to two different sets of people, or two people laid claim on it. The Pennsylvanians had claimed it, and it was granted to them by the King of England, and was part of the Pennsylvania Charter, but it was also part of the Connecticut Charter and was gifted or granted to the Connecticut settlers by the King of England at the same time. So both colonies laid claim to this valley, and both were legally correct, and it had to do with some strange sort of verbiage, especially in the Connecticut Charter, which, because nobody had an idea of how big the landmass of America was at the time, they basically claimed all lands to the west between the top and bottom of Connecticut. So two lines of latitude. They basically said everything between those lines all the way to the Pacific Ocean was included in the Connecticut colony, which of course is crazy, but that ended up including this area. So they actually ended up leading to violent war, the Yankee-Pennamite War, which had to be put on hold for the Revolution, in fact, and it wasn't finally settled until after the American Revolution, and the new U.S. government stepped in and had to adjudicate. So blood was shed, and violence came to this valley between the settlers here. So pretty interesting history, and of course history fascinates me. All right, we are lined up here on 2-5, ready to go. Light and variable winds. We've got one plane in the traffic pattern. We're going to remain in the pattern. So let's roll out. Here we go. Full power. No flaps takeoff. Not necessary here. Runway is plenty long, so no need for short field takeoff procedure. There's 55, and a nice gentle liftoff. And we've just triggered.
Wind calm. Visibility
What are we doing?
Sky condition clear. Temperature, tree 2C, dew point, 1 tree.
What the hell is picking that up? Is that the...
3000.
Is that COM 2? Yeah, COM 2
November
is...
89er, automated weather observation, 180.
There we go, okay. That was extremely distracting. On upwind now, Susquehanna River out to our left. Head up to about 1,600 feet for pattern altitude. We've extended a little far already because I was dicking with the radios, but we'll get back on track here and tighten it up a bit. All right, so let's talk about the channel a little bit. So in the big personal news for me, like I said, is I have officially graduated with a bachelor's in history. So school, thank God, is now done. And school was the main reason why this channel sort of got put on hold for the most part over the last couple of years, because it was just too much brain power for me to do both. Especially because so much of my gaming stuff is research related, having to research things for school, and then in my off time doing more research for projects here was just too much. I just opted to not do regular stuff and just sort of fill in here and there, you know, when I could. That was through Excelsior University, which is up in Albany. They specialize in online learning, and they especially cater to veterans and active duty personnel. So, which ended up being really, really a great call, because when the pandemic hit, a lot of schools did not know how they were going to do their classes. They were not set up for good online interaction, and it was a real clusterfuck for a lot of students, including a lot of the kids that were in my class at Marywood, which would have been 2020 or 2021, whatever it was. So luckily for me, I did not have any of those problems because the school is already specializing in online stuff, and so they were just, you know, business as usual. So that was really, really nice. And so I began that here in Scranton, right? Is that true? Yes. I started going to classes here in Scranton. Oh yeah, because it was over the pandemic. And then last May, so a year and 1 month ago today, we moved here to California, where I am now. I'm in Northern California, just east of San Francisco, a couple hours east of San Francisco. My wife got a wonderful new job, and so we made the cross-country trek as we kiss the pavement. Get back on that center line. Add power for the go-around. And we're back up. We're just going to hold it off here. Get that speed up. Coming towards the end of the runway. And we'll let it start to come up. Bring the flaps up, notch at a time, so we don't fall out of the sky, but we'll be clearing those trees already. Okay, great. So yeah, so we moved to California last year, which was another huge thing. Another big reason why I wasn't doing videos, because my wife got this job. We knew that we were going to have to move out here, and yeah, I knew that it wasn't just school. I actually stopped school for several semesters because then we had to start packing the house. We had to do some house hunting, well, a house hunting trip out here, and find a place to live. And then we had to pack up our house. We had a moving company come. Her new job paid for the cross-country move, which was, thank God for that, because those are expensive. But they came with a big tractor trailer, loaded all our stuff up. So we just had, and actually my car went on a trailer, so my car got sent. And so we just had her SUV, the two cats, the two of us, and a few things to sort of get through the final days in the empty house, and then the first few days here once we got here, you know. So we did a week crossing in the SUV. We drove from Scranton on 84, Route 84, basically the whole time, from Scranton all the way to Modesto, California. And that took a week. And yes, we could have done it sooner if we were insane and didn't like sleep, but there was no way in hell I was going to do that. You know, I'm not in my 20s now. Not going to do, like my buddy Ken many years ago, he drove from Seattle, Washington back to Connecticut in like 3 days straight because he didn't sleep and sped the whole time. And I was like, yeah, we're not doing that. Not with the cats in the car. And not with me in the car, because that's not my idea of a good time. So we said, okay, about 8 hours every day. Yeah, we'll take about a week to make the crossing and just sort of enjoy ourselves and not be pressed for time. So that's what we did. All right. So just ahead of us there, it's sort of hard to see, but that sort of white area is Avoca, which is the also known as Scranton International Airport. And we'll maybe go visit over there in a minute. But they do have a Class D airspace, which we want to avoid when we're in the pattern. So we don't want to go too far beyond this bridge here. That was always a good marker. And then we'll be looking right at downtown 40 Fort here, such as it is. Pittston, up there to my right. And Pittston is where the Susquehanna River here joins with the Lackawanna River, which will continue north and goes up to Scranton itself. We'll maybe take a look at that in a minute. Turning to final here. Let's get a view over the nose a little bit better. So, yeah, so what was I talking about? So the move. We're here now. It's been a year. May 1st was the 1 year anniversary. So we've been here a whole year. And we're committed to at least 5 years here. Although her job is going really well. So I don't know what the future holds, but we're here for at least a handful of years. With school over, I now want to get back into the video making. And so a couple things going on with that front as we touch down right on the center line there again. That was pretty good. That was a little less crazy than the last time. I don't know if a gust came up or what last time, but we're actually keeping it pretty straight this time. Let's get some speed up. Hold it in ground effect for just a minute there while the speed comes up. There's 55. 1 notch flaps up. Continue the climb. We're clear of the obstacles. Another notch. And get back up to no flaps and our climb speed, which help me out. VY in a Cessna 172 is, I want to say it's 75. I think VX is 55 and VY is 75. Does that sound about right? Probably should have looked before this. It doesn't matter. one of the things that was sort of holding me back from doing more videos was I wanted to upgrade my editing software. And that was sort of daunting. It was daunting to the point of procrastination where I didn't want to tackle it because it seemed like such a huge thing. But for years, I've been using an editing program called Magix, with an X. And I use them for both my audio editing, so for my music editing software, but also for the video editing. And I bought it years and years and years ago. So it's a little out of date. I got a copy of DaVinci Resolve, which I want to use. I got a little bit of experience using different editing softwares when we did the Keystone documentary. So I figured, you know what, it's probably time to upgrade to something that's a little more up to date with the times. The learning curve was a little steep, but I'm getting a much better feeling on how to use the program. I used it to make a couple of real videos. I edited together some old footage from the Enterprise days, and more recently I put together that F-14 random demo. That was all done using DaVinci. So I'm feeling pretty good, like I can be just as quick with that as I used to be with Magix. And that was sort of the thing, because the learning curve was steep, it was stopping me from using the new software because I felt like I could just do things faster with the old software that I was more familiar with. But now I feel like I can do stuff in DaVinci. You know, I don't know all of it. I don't know all the ins and outs, and it's a very, very complex program, especially when it comes to things like color correcting, you know, and some of the effects. It's very, very dense, but the basic stuff that I need, I'm comfortable with. So this video will be edited with that. When you see it, that'll all be in DaVinci. And one of the big things is DaVinci exports in 4K natively, so I don't have to do an extra step that I was doing before, which was to export the video and then run it through an upscaler to get it into 4K. And the reason that 4K is important, I'm actually not even recording this in 4K, but it's important to me because I found that 4K videos look much, much better on YouTube because of the YouTube compression, the way that they compress their videos when you upload them. When you upload video games, it can make things look really blocky and not great. And so that was annoying me because here I am trying to make things look really, really nice. And YouTube would be screwing me on the video compression. I found that 4K, uploading things as 4K, you just get a much crisper, clearer picture, and you don't get those artifacts and compression problems. So that's why it's important. DaVinci, I can export directly into 4K. It saves me a whole step now, which is pretty awesome. All right, we're gonna head out of the pattern now. We'll get onto the downwind. We'll depart out of the downwind and head north up to Scranton, and we'll go stomp around the old neighborhood and look around downtown a little bit. And then maybe we'll come on back, shoot some landings over at Avoca, which was the first control tower controlled airport that I landed at. That was where we went for you know, a lot of the training in the program. So I've logged a lot of landings and takeoffs over there as well. So yeah, so schedule coming up for the channel. What are some things that I want to do, want to get back to, etc., etc. the first things that I want to get done are the loose end projects. Things that are mostly complete as a set. I want to go ahead and finish those off. So, to wit, I have a bunch of music, quite old music, that I do want to get up in its entirety. When I got out of the Navy in 2006, I was so burned out that I just basically took an entire year off. I lived on unemployment. I was entitled to it, getting out of the Navy, being a veteran. So I was like, if I'm entitled to a year of unemployment, I'm freaking taking it. So I did, and I took that time to experiment with digital music recording on my home PC, which now, almost 20 years later, is sort of ridiculous to think about in a way because everyone does it. Like, it's so normalized now. But at the time, I feel like nobody was doing that. That was, you know, you still had to have a lot of expensive equipment, it felt like, to do a good job with that. But I just wanted to make music, and so I did. So I made a whole album of various songs, and I have put some of them up on YouTube, but I would like to just put the whole set up there, because sometimes I want to listen to it myself, and it would be handy if it was just on YouTube, because then I could just call it up on my phone and listen to it while I'm doing whatever. And maybe some other people would like, you know, to hear it as well. So, music, I want to upload music, and that's pretty easy. That's a fairly quick project, so that's also important. I need a bunch of quick projects to get me back into the habit of doing this. It's been so long that it's not easy to do anymore. To sort of like get into the workflow and the mindset of just being motivated to make something during the week and then get a video up. So that'll be easy. And then I have a bunch of school projects that I want to finish. I put a couple of them up, but there's a bunch more that I just think would be interesting to put out there. And a couple of them I want to narrate, because they originally did not have narration. They were just slides. It was just a slideshow. But I'd like to go through and just narrate a couple of them and finish them up, and then put those up. And so that's a nice little easy thing to do as well. And then we'll sort of, like I said, round out that collection, you know, that playlist. And then after that, then I'll come back and start getting back into some of the real meaty projects. And I'm pretty sure the first thing that I want to do is finish up my Monongahela series in Train Simulator. That's a 3-part series, and I've done 2 parts. We arrived in West Brownsville in the Challenger, took a coal train up the mountain to the coal mines, and then part 3 is me coming back down. Well, I haven't made part 3, and so that's what I want to do. And there's a whole bunch of research and more pictures from the Waynesburg area. There was another Pennsylvania railroad, subsidiary railroad that was for passenger service, and so I want to talk about that. I've got some more pictures from the University of Pittsburgh up there, from their digital archive that I can use, and that'll complete that series. And in a way, I'm kind of glad that I held off, because recently the company Smokebox released their study-level high-fidelity Challenger, which actually includes a Clinchfield Railroad livery, which is what I had used in the original. So I actually own that now, and I was in a railroading mood lately, so I was relearning all about air brakes, and I've got that Clinchfield Challenger, which can replace the original base model that I was using, which is not very good. And so we'll have the high-fidelity model to take the heavy coal train back down the mountain, which I'm really excited about, because with the heavy train, actually being able to use the air brakes properly and bail off the locomotive, and it just makes for more interesting train handling, which I was not getting from that other basic locomotive. So we'll have all that. So it'll be 1 episode. That'll make 3 out of 3, and then I can be done with that, put that to bed, and then I can move on to some other stuff. I do want to continue working on the New Haven Railroad videos, because I have a lot planned for that, and I never really got to that as much as I wanted to. In fact, I want to redo some of the old videos, because for some reason I exported in some crazy-ass resolution, like 768 by something. It's bizarre. I don't know why I did that. So I think I want to redo that whole video. And then I have a bunch of other ones that I want to do. And I like doing those, especially because that's all stuff that's near to where I grew up. And so I like to show my mom. You know, she's a big railroad gal. So she really likes when I make the videos for the railroad stuff. And I have a bunch of railroading people from here in Scranton below us that I like to share stuff with as well, because they shared a lot with me about the railroads of this area when I was here. The Delaware-Lackawanna, Central New Jersey Railroad. In fact, there was about 5 different railroads here in this city, all related to getting coal and passengers to and from, because this place was a metropolis at one time. It's sort of in economic decline now, because coal went away. But at the time, there was like 5 different railroads that connected, and actually the nexus of that was right here underneath us. This is Steamtown. This was the original Delaware and Lackawanna freight yards here in downtown Scranton, and now it's a national historic site, Steamtown. Is it Steamtown, USA? I forget. But basically it's now under the auspices of the national parks, and they restore steam locomotives, and they've got a big museum of steam in general in North America, so Canada and the United States, and a lot of local history related to the coal railroads and coal stuff in general. Also next door to that is the Trolley Museum. As some of you may know from The Office or from other sources, Scranton was and is still known as the Electric City, and that's because they were one of the first areas to use electrified urban and interurban trolleys to get around town and into the surrounding communities. So there on the left side of the parking lot, that square building, that's also the Trolley Museum. So it's sort of a 2-in-1. Although they are different museums, they're both on the same site. So yeah, so that's Steamtown down there. And actually this big building, this big white building here, that used to be the Delaware and Lackawanna locomotive shops, and now is who is that? Is that Rockwell? So this is downtown Scranton. So I used to live just over here to the right. Oh, so here we have the Lackawanna River is this river that's coming under us here. This flows down, like I said, to Pittston, where it joins with the Susquehanna. Right underneath us here is Scranton High School, and that's their athletic field. And let's see, right in front of us here, so just to the right there, that is the historic Scranton Lace Factory. And that bridge is right at the bottom of the street I used to live on. So let's circle back around. That was Court Street in Scranton. The Lace Factory, while now very closed and defunct, and actually is getting a renovation to be repurposed as a commercial and industrial space, and maybe residential. They may be putting apartments there, but they this is a thing that happens. I'm familiar with it because it happens a lot in New England, where I'm from. A lot of these old mills and factories have all been converted, and rather than tearing them down, getting rid of them completely, they've been repurposed as modern spaces and updated. So right there, that's with the angled building, that's the lace factory. And then this road going up at right angles from the bridge is Court Street. And this white right angle building is actually a church. And that white building right next to it... No, I'm sorry. The white building was the church, and the small building next to it was my house. So let's come around and look at that again. It's the Methodist church in town, and was apparently the church that Hillary Clinton went to as a kid. Both she and Joe Biden apparently are from here, which is so random. But yeah, they both have ties to the area, and so Hillary Clinton went to this church. Here we go. So now we're coming back from the backside. And it's up here. Okay, you can see the parking lot behind the church, and so that little white house next to it, that's where we lived. Down that little... The house is actually quite big. It doesn't do justice here, but it was a decently sized house, and that's where we lived. Straighten out here and we'll head up just a little bit further north, back on the power to come back up. So I was talking about the New Haven videos. So yeah, I want to do a lot of railroading videos, but the Monongahela first. That's a big project. We'll get it out of the way, and then I'll turn my attention back to a lot of Strike Fighters 2. The reason, in part, that I'm actually doing this video is because I have a lot of interests, and I get bored if I play the same game for a long time. And that's why I jump around, and I know it drives some people crazy that I have so many series started, but it's because I like doing a lot of different things, and I get bored just doing one thing nonstop. This is Marywood University, actually, just right up here to the right. So this is where I went brick and mortar school. I actually physically went here, and like I said, they no longer, but at the time they had this agreement with Valley Aviation down at Wyoming Valley Airport. So all of us students trucked on down there to 44 and got our training in. Yeah, so I like many different things, and it phases in and out. Sometimes I'm in the mood for railroading, sometimes I'm in the mood for flying, sometimes I'm in the mood for sailing. But I have a lot of Strike Fighter series, and there's other ones that I actually want to keep doing, but I don't want to start yet. I don't want to start anything new. I just want to continue with what I've got. We're pretty far along in the Vietnam playthrough, so we'll continue with that. Of course, I really love the RAF campaign. That's just so cool, and it's stuff that I don't know about, so that makes it even more interesting to me. Learning new things is like what catches my interest. And we actually have the official Devin Horner pilot, the naval campaign, which I want to get back to at some point, which has been on hold. We're waiting for the A4 campaign, which I know a lot of people want. People love the scooter, and I do want to get to it, but it was just, I was doing too much at once. So it was in a good place to just put it on hold, so it's backburnered, so we'll get back to that. Somebody had a really good idea at one point, actually doing the 6-Day War, the Israeli 6-Day War, because that would be a very limited scope. It would be a limited number of episodes, and would sort of explore some more modern aircraft in a different location. So that would be neat, sort of a bite-size project. So that might be something that I would do, because I wouldn't be able to let myself just go. I'd have a specific scope of just a few days worth of missions, and then it would be over. So that's the thing that I would do. What else in Strike Fighters? I want to get to... So projects that I want to get to. Korea. I really want to do Korea. I really need to do Operation Desert Storm. In fact, I have the updated... I think it's the 30th anniversary edition. It's a whole ground-up mod that some people made that is all inclusive and has a lot of content in it, so I do want to get to that. So that's up there. And I want to get to some North Atlantic campaigns. Like, I really want to do some like mid-80s Cold War, like F-14 stuff. Hold on, I'm looking for a specific thing here in the woods, and I think I have found it over here to the left. It's been a minute since I've been in this area, so it's not so familiar, but is this it? I don't think it is. Shit. Lockheed Martin has a facility up here in Archbald, Pennsylvania, which is just up here to the north. And it's sort of hidden away. Oh no, that's some sort of warehouse. But it is hidden away up here, like, in the woods a bit. But that's where my wife worked before, when she worked for Lockheed Martin. She worked at the Archbald site. And the really cool thing about that site is that is where a lot of the rod control cabinets for our nuclear reactors on Enterprise came from. They made a lot of the electronics for the reactor control systems. And in fact, my wife got to meet some of the people that worked on that stuff 50 years ago. They were just retiring at the time, or had already retired. I guess they'd be pretty old. But they were still around enough for her to at least, like, meet them. And so that was a really interesting, unexpected connection to our naval past. Oh, I should probably explain I first met my wife on board the Enterprise in 2002. So now over 20 years ago. And so we both worked in foreplant. She was an electronics tech and I was a machinist mate. So we didn't work exactly together, but we were in the same in-dock class together. We came in and we did like our first quals. They lumped us all together. All nukes were lumped together, and you had to do your basic qualifications for indoctrination, and then you got sent to your different jobs and your different plants. Well, we both went to foreplant, and so we were friends early on. Sort of had a falling out, and then didn't expect to see her again ever. And then 13 years later, we reconnected randomly through Facebook, and I lived in Connecticut and she lived here in Scranton because she was working at the Berwick nuclear power plant, which is just south of where we took off. It's down on the Susquehanna. I think this is Lockheed right here, actually. Yeah, this looks familiar. Oh, yeah, that's the parking lot. So this is Lockheed. It was originally a different company when they first made the electronics for the Enterprise. They were doing the reactor stuff. It was actually a different company. It was a subcontractor, and sometime in the intervening decades, Lockheed just bought them outright. So now it's just a Lockheed, straight up Lockheed site. So my wife was a reactor operator in ET. So she actually worked the reactors, and I ran the steam plant. And we never thought we'd see each other again. Like I said, we had that falling out, but we reconnected on Facebook, and I was like, dude, you only live 3 hours away from me, and for Navy friends, that's like nothing. Like, my next nearest Navy person was in Ohio, so like, whatever that, like 8 hours away. So a 3-hour trip seemed like nothing. So we started visiting, and then officially started dating, and then I moved here with her. And then we got married, and then she moved to Texas for Lockheed and actually worked down there at their home, at their headquarters outside of Dallas. And I remained here for a little while, and then she moved back to Scranton for a few months, and then we moved to California. So that's the backstory on that. But yeah, so that's where she worked, doing enterprise stuff. Well, she wasn't doing enterprise stuff. The connection was to the Enterprise, and that's such a random, it's like, it's a building out in the middle of the woods. How freaking crazy is it that that site would be related to our naval careers and our specific job? Like, it's not just like, oh, they made something for the ship. They made something for the ship that she specifically worked on, and I indirectly was related to. So, pretty interesting, right? Unusual. So, we were talking about Strike Fighters, Silent Hunter 4. That's hugely popular. I definitely want to get back into that. I enjoy that series a whole lot. It's been so long that I'm crazy rusty now, so I'd have to get back into it, but that's not a big problem. I just have to do it. So that'll be on the docket. We'll get more Silent Hunter. I want to do more here in Flight Sim. I've got some ideas for stuff here that I really want to do. Different tours of different areas that I think are interesting. One would be sort of like this. I want to go back and just do tours of some areas that I lived in for the Navy. Places I was stationed or trained at. So maybe we go look at the Great Lakes Boot Camp, up to my nuclear training area up in upstate New York, then down to Norfolk. Maybe even some of the places we visited on the deployment. Maybe head out to the Middle East and look around Dubai and Bahrain, etc., etc. So that would be kind of a sort of a limited scope. Like, that wouldn't be crazy open-ended. Like, I have only lived in so many places. But I thought that would kind of be neat, and I would like to take my Corsair out, maybe the F-14, Navy planes that I enjoy flying, and go look at some stuff. And then, unrelated to that, well, related in the sense that they would be tours, there's just a lot of interesting places in the world that I would like to just show off. Because here in Microsoft Flight Sim, we've got all this real-world map data. We can see a lot of stuff, including correct elevation changes for different things. So, like, the nuclear testing range out at Yucca Flats, I've been flying around that a couple times, and I thought that would be really interesting to do some research on and go look at some specific areas. I have a list of just places that either come to mind that I think would be a neat idea to go, like, look around, or places that I happen to see while I'm flying anyways. So I do have a list of stuff. We're back over Scranton High School again. Their football field, we can see it a little better there. Back over downtown Scranton. There. Steamtown. And the Lackawanna River flowing out to the west. There is AVP, or Avoca. Scranton International. It's got a couple of different names. We'll go ahead and get into the pattern there. Do a touch and go. Actually, maybe we'll do a full stop and then taxi back. Yeah, why don't we do that? Because that's what we used to do for flight school. A lot of times, I guess a couple times, we did just simple touch and goes, but a lot of times it was the option where we could just do a full stop if we wanted to and then taxi back. And of course they were doing that to give us practice switching between tower and ground frequencies and just talking to those two different entities, because Wyoming Valley is uncontrolled, so that was all just on the CTAF, just self-announcing. And so getting the actual experience talking to the tower and ground control here at Avoca, that was the reason that we would go there.
Approach SkyWest 5622 is passing 8,900 feet.
Oh, we've actually got someone nearby on the approach frequency.
SkyWest 5622.
So yeah, so that's my thoughts on this game. Is just doing some traveling to interesting places, because we can do that here. It's sort of like doing Google vacations, where you can just look at places, and the fidelity is so good that you can really get an idea of what places are really like. Not like the old flight sims where it was just sort of generic and green and bland. You can really get an idea of what places look like, what they feel like. You can sort of explore, you know, different areas. So I would like to I'd like to do that. Beyond that, another series that I want to start is the Flying Circus add-on for IL-2, which last year I bought the first volume for and started playing, and I love it. And they just released volume 2, which adds more airplanes and I guess some like actual campaign stuff, although there's a third-party campaign that was pretty good that I was using, but World War I is fascinating to me. The air war of World War I is fascinating, and when I get the bug for it, when it comes back around, I get really into it. And it's definitely not something that I've really showcased here on the channel before, but it is one of my interests. We just don't see it a lot here. But I really would love to do a series on that, to do a campaign. So that'll be someday in the making. I have a pirate game that I want to get to that originally was going to be the companion piece in a way to the Silent Hunter. I was going to do modern, semi-modern, World War II sailing, and then I wanted to do some like, you know, 17th century like sailing ship, like tall ship sailing with pirate stuff, and it's an older game, but pretty fun. And so I'll talk about that more when we get to it eventually, but that's the thing that I want to do. And let's see what else here with the channel. I think we're going to start saving for a new computer for me. This one has been quite good, but it's a few years old now, and so it's starting to get a little old, especially for games like this. I notice some choppiness sometimes. It would be nice just to have a top-of-the-line model with all that ray tracing goodness and a little more processing power to really crank the graphics up on this game in particular, and some of the other newer games. Like IL-2 would actually work. That would work good for it. When you have a lot of airplanes in the air, that can bog down a bit. That's in the future, perhaps. Start saving for a new computer completely. And I guess I should probably, you know, consider getting some Patreon and Discord servers going for the channel, and actually, you know, branching out that part of the business, if you will. It's definitely stuff that I've not had a lot of interest in, and is sort of more work than I was that I was looking to do. I'm a pretty introverted person, so like some people really love the interaction with fans part of it, and while I don't mind interacting with a lot of people like through comments or even through some people have found me through Facebook, etc., etc. I haven't been super keen to properly set up a real Discord channel, but that's a thing that's in the works.
SkyWest 5622 traffic.
Should get that squared away and set up a Patreon. So if people wanted to actually donate some money, they can have that option. Again, it's not a thing. I feel weird about asking for money from people. Oh, hey, donate to me, but everyone does it, and a lot of people expect it because I've actually had comments of people asking about it. Can we donate to you? Do you have a Discord channel? So people are interested in these things. So I feel I should, if I'm gonna do this more full time, those are definitely things that I should address. So those will be on the horizon. We'll figure that out. I don't have a lot of experience with it, but my wife does, actually. She was actually Twitch streaming for a while. For a couple of years, I think. She was doing some Mass Effect stuff and, what else? Dragon Age, so like some BioWare related stuff, and, what's that little farming game? Stardew Valley. So she was having a blast with that for a long time, so she actually knows more about sort of that level of engagement with people than I do, so she'll be a resource that I use for sure. And we'll get those set up at some point. So, yeah. I think that's basically everything that I wanted to talk about. The channel is not dead. It's just been in hibernation, and the time has finally come where I can really put my full effort back into it. And I really should, because I do miss it. I have all these ideas of things that I want to do, but then I find myself not motivated to do it. Especially once you've been away from it for a while, it's very easy to just be like, do people really care? Am I just doing this for me? Like, is it really worth my time? And I think it is. Just getting back into the swing of things will make it easier. Make it a habit again. It was a habit for a long time. In fact, it was too much of a habit, I think. I was sort of burning out on it because I felt like I wasn't playing any games for myself. It would take me about a week to make an entire Strike Fighters episode, and or whatever I was doing. And so that was sort of my whole life. It was like, well, if I'm on the computer, I need to be, if I'm not making a video, I'm wasting my time. And so I stopped sort of doing things in games for fun. It was just all work. And so that was a real burnout kind of thing. And it doesn't help that I get like super like target fixated on stuff. Like I'll just sit and I'll edit all day and like not eat, or not get up and go outside, and so that's all bad stuff. Like I can't be that consumed by it. Like if I made myself more regular and reasonable hours during the day, I think it would be much more manageable, and I could do stuff for work, quote unquote, and then still have time to play games for fun with my friends or by myself. So these are all things, lessons learned from the first time round that I'm going to apply this time, and try to make it a little more manageable, and therefore keep things going a little more regularly. And I'm not going to commit to any schedule like that. I don't care to do. But when possible, I will try to release on Fridays, probably. What I would love to do is actually bank up a lot of episodes and then have them in the chute ready to go, and so then they can just release automatically every week, and I don't have to actually do additional work during the week. I can be working on other projects or not working at all on projects if I want to go on vacation or travel, things like that. Like, oh, so here's the thing. So my mother is coming to visit next Monday, and so she'll be here for 2 weeks. So I'm gonna make this. This is Thursday the 1st that I'm recording this. So I'll make this, and then Mom's gonna be here. So she and I are gonna be hanging out a lot during the day, and I don't know how much video work I'm actually gonna get done. So it'll probably be another couple of weeks here, maybe before stuff officially starts even coming out. But we'll see. But, you know, just things like that to consider. Ooh, right in the touchdown zone. Not bad. Pretty close to the center line. Put the power on. I had a very important flying lesson, sort of a life lesson in flying, here on this very runway, headed the other way. And it was on one of my final flights. It was with my final certification check ride, and I was with the FAA inspector, and so she had me come over here, and we did a couple of touch and goes, and on the final one, I touched down, and so up here in the corner here, we've got these vents, right? They let air into the cabin, and they're just adjusted by hand. And these ones are actually much nicer. These are like newer and fancier, but the one on the real 07 Quebec was sort of just like an older, like metal guy, like a cylinder in a tube type of thing. And we touched down, and nothing happened on touchdown, but I gave it full power, and that thing popped out completely. Like it basically popped out of the tube onto the dashboard here and like fell in our laps, and I was in the middle of rotating and pulling out when that happened, and we both got distracted looking up at it. And when I like looked, so I'm like looking up at it and like looking down at the thing, and when I looked back over the cowl, the nose was pointed down towards the runway, and I was like, oh Jesus. And so I pulled back up and got us out, and that happened right there about halfway down the runway. And I was like, oh, Jesus Christ, of all the times to get distracted like that. And part of it was the nervousness of being with a new person and a federal inspector on top of it. So it was like, you're nervous for your check ride. And wouldn't you know it, this fucking vent pops out and goes careening around the cabin. And I still passed. By the way, that's not the moral of the story, but we both recognized that was a learning moment, and I was like, I can't believe like that's never happened to me before. I've never been distracted like that in such a key moment. And she was like, that's, take that knowledge away, take that experience away with you from this, that's how easy it is to just let something take your attention away from doing the number one thing that you always should do, which is to fly the airplane, right? Aviate, navigate, pick up chunks of aircraft, I think is the third one. So, yeah, so it's a little real life story from Scranton here. Hey, there's somebody. A little Cessna on their way in. Oh, it looks like he's going around. And he disappeared. Alright. I am using, by the way, I have a lot of... I don't want to get into the whole mod list for Flight Simulator because it is monumental. But I am using the FS LTL traffic mod, which adds offline AI traffic based on real-time, like, I almost said VATSIM, not VATSIM, based on real-time air traffic out there, and so I like that a lot. I have a lot of mods for Flight Sim. It's sort of too many. Like, I don't remember half of them, which is why when people ask me for mod lists, I'm sort of at a loss because I got to go looking for things that I have and I don't remember them half the time. But yeah, so that was a little AI Cessna coming in, and for some reason did a go around and then disappeared. Alright, we'll do one more landing here. I'm realizing that I'm just sort of prattling on, and God, I don't even know how long this recording is now, but we'll do one more. I was gonna do the taxi back, but I think at this point we'll just do one more T&G. Then we'll head back to Wyoming Valley and park this thing. Okay, we'll do full flaps retract, back on the power. Airspeed's coming back up, there's 55 knots. Up, back into the sky. We got a couple of CRJs over there, which is primarily what flies in and out of Scranton here. There's a couple of larger twin-engine commercial jets, so Airbus, either 310s or maybe 320s. There's a couple of those that come in during the day, but for the most part, it's just the small connection flights. They often connect down to Philadelphia or to New York or to like Charlotte. There's a lot of, like, American connects through here, and so a lot of the smaller planes will go to Charlotte or Philly or out to like O'Hare even sometimes, and then you catch like a real plane to your destination beyond that. Okay, I see somebody on final again for the runway. Coming in here to Avoca. Let's see. See him right there? Oh, I zoomed in and he disappeared. Well, I assure you I saw him. Nope, there he is. He's just over the highway there. So you see that drop off there at the end of the runway? That's real. That's not an elevation glitch in the game. And a 4-star general died there. General Jerome O'Malley was the commander of Tactical Air Command in the mid-'80s, and in 1985 he and his wife were flying into the airport here. He was coming to visit family because he's originally from Carbondale, Pennsylvania, which is just up to the north. They were coming in a CT-39 Saberliner, which is a small Air Force business jet, basically. The general wasn't flying at the time, but he was in the co-pilot seat, and the aircraft lost hydraulic fluid. They lost brakes after touching down, and basically were unable to stop and rolled off the end of the runway and down that embankment. And the general, his wife, and all 3 of the crew members on board the aircraft were killed. And that was in 1985. AVP hasn't seen a lot of fatal crashes over the years, but that was sort of a spectacular one to have happen. Alright, so here we are. We're going to leave the Avoca airspace behind us. And then we'll come around and we'll get back into the 45 to enter downwind here at Wyoming Valley, which is right there, for one final full stop landing.
November 89er, automated weather observation.
Ah, see, here we go. There, we're getting the,
wind,
that's so
calm.
annoying.
Visibility, 9er. Sky condition, clear. Temperature, tree 2C.
Alright, we'll just put on the tower for Avoca there. Yeah, I don't know why that's doing it. We're picking up some ATIS from somewhere else. The interesting thing about here at Wyoming Valley is that they don't have their own ATIS, but you listen in on the... Whoa. You listen in on the Avoca ATIS behind us, which actually is 111.6 on the nav. So you would actually hit nav 1, and we should be hearing the audio ATIS through the navigational aid, through the VOR, which is not represented here in the game. But that's how we did it in real life. And I just thought that was interesting, because I had never encountered that before in the sim world of flying. I didn't realize that you actually could get the ATIS broadcasts through the navigational aids, but it turns out that you can. I hope my flying has been okay with everybody. This has been pretty slap happy this time out. I've been so worried about speaking and talking about the things I wanted to talk about that I haven't been paying super attention to actually doing the flying. So I hope that's not offensive to too many people. Oh, I should say that, so normally, see this ridge on the far side here? Oh, that was weird. The ridge on the far side here, over there is where the actual training area was. So we would take off from the valley, climb up over the ridge, and then out on the other side is where we would do all of our various flight maneuvers. So that's where you'd see, you know, a bunch of the aircraft from the school with different students in them out doing their thing, and then you'd come back over the ridge and either land here at the valley or maybe head over to Avoca, you know, if the instructor wanted to do some... Oh, we are crazy low. If the instructor wanted to do some work over at the tower airport. Well, we're crazy low, but as we used to say in the Navy, if you're wrong, stay wrong. So we'll just we'll stick here at about 1,200 feet. And we'll make the turn to base, once again looking at downtown 44 for the last time. It's not here now, but I always remember rolling out here, looking down one of these two roads, and there was a big steeple. One of those buildings in real life is a big church. It was really interesting when this game came out. You know, it had been several years since I have actually flown, and so to like see that same image again was wild. This dike here that we're going to fly over, this big berm, is a walking path, so a lot of times we'd be coming in on final just like this, real low, and you'd see people joggers or families down on the path on top of the dike, waving up at us or just looking, and they felt so close. And of course, it's not a great time to take your eyes off and look down like that on close final here, but out of your periphery, you could kind of see them. Bring the flaps in. We'll go ahead and roll out here down to the end. Make our exit off the runway and back over to the parking area. There we go. Landing off, strobes off, and we would report clear of the active. Do our after landing checklist. And this grass runway here, it's 3/4 grass and 1/4 paved, which is very interesting, but this is a real runway. We back taxi down it in the beginning, 927. So we'll throw the strobes and the landing lights on for safety. And we would make a call that we're crossing, 927. Come to a stop first to check for traffic, but we're just going to tool across here. And then safely on the other side, we secure landing lights, strobes. We now clear of runway 927. And then we're just here into the parking area. Which again looks a little weird without the big hangar, which should be right there where that rotating beacon is. But these parking lines are correct. There's 3 lines of for parking here. Oh, this guy's just wandering around. All right, well we'll take the far one here. All right, well that's going to conclude as we roll to a stop here in a second. I'll do the shutdown, but that's going to conclude our fly and talk. Thanks for coming along with me on this one and just hearing what I had to say and hanging out with me. Pretty chill. And yeah, I may do more similar things in the future, or just, more flight sim stuff in general. Because sometimes I just enjoy flying, and it doesn't always have to be about doing combat stuff or, anything like that. Sometimes I just like the relaxing feeling of just, flying for fun. So thank you for sharing that with me this time around, and I will see you all next time here on the channel.